Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
This is your captain speaking, John Regan. Welcome to USA Prepares. Vincent is away on farming business today. He'll be back on Monday. And I'll be here with Stephen Heuer the next 2 hours. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, John. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good, too. In our email exchange where you were talking about some of the things, health challenges that you were dealing with, if you don't mind, I would be happy to comment if you want to ask questions about what to do for those things. If you don't, I understand. We can do it off air, too.
I've been pretty much doing this on air quite a bit with Dr. Shealy, so it's not a private matter. And okay. It's been quite a learning experience all around. So what are you doing for the insulin sensitivity to improve it, and what are you doing to lower this excess iron or ferritin in your system? Well, just back up and just so you know how everything progressed. About a year ago, I was speaking at the Hear the Watchman conference here in Dallas, and I hadn't seen the organizer since the Knoxville conference, which had been several months earlier. And when I walked in there, she asked, "Had you lost weight?" And I was kind of surprised at that because, besides being on USA Prepares Weekly, I was spending the time getting ready for the conference. So I was eating very poorly at that time because just so much of my time was taken up doing everything else at that point. And I had actually thought that I had gained weight. So I did a little research. There's a site that you can type your symptoms into and gives all kinds of possibilities. So the major two at that point were, chronic fatigue and unexplained weight loss.
Okay.
And if I had just stopped at chronic fatigue, hemochromatosis would have appeared on that list because I put the unexplained weight loss, which is still a symptom of hemochromatosis. For some reason, it took it off there. And my wife and I were both experiencing most of the same symptoms. I had some she didn't have. She had some I didn't have. And most of the possibilities that came up were different kinds of cancer. So that was the first track we went down. And in some ways it would have been easier had it been cancer because there's, as you know, there's so much you can do for that.
Yeah. Yep.
We ended up having CA-125 tests done, which that's mostly for female-type cancers, which was especially good for Becky because one of the symptoms she had was the same thing my mother had with her cancer of the uterus. So those results came back without a problem, which then set us off on this journey. Okay, now what the heck is wrong with us? And it was a combination of two factors there. One, I called into Dr. Shealy and asked, what he recommended testing. And I was also reading Dr. McCullough's latest book, Fat for Fuel. And one of the tests, one of the things he talked about was having too much iron and getting the ferritin test. So I added that in, and Yeah, I don't have health insurance, so I had to do everything outside the system.
Right.
Fortunately today you can, unless you live in a certain 5 states, you can go online, order the lab tests, and get them done. So in October, we had several tests done that included the A1C test and the ferritin test. And
How was the A1C test?
horrible.
Okay.
Mine was like 12.8, and my wife was 13.6.
And what's ideal on that one?
I'd have to look it up, but I think it's about 5.5 before you start getting in the pre-diabetes range.
Okay.
And this was, well past the diabetes range. That meant our average blood sugar, mine would have been over 300, and Becky's would have been nearly 400.
Okay.
So definitely an issue there. The other thing, the ferritin came back. Hers was 201, and for a female, hemochromatosis is defined as a value over 200. For a male, it's over 300, and mine was like 355.
Okay.
So, knowing, what we knew, we went ahead and, got the sugar out of our diet, the starches and the flours and all of that stuff, so that we could start taking care of the diabetes part of things. The iron part was much trickier. Becky is still able to donate blood, so we've had her do that. And after her last time donating, which was Valentine's Day, we had her retest, and her ferritin is now under 100, which is where the damage kicks in. So with her next time, which will be in April, we should have her down to a nice, healthy range. Dr. Shealy was nice enough to give me a prescription at the beginning of February, and I've now had 5 draws, which equates to about 2/3 of a gallon of blood, and that was over a 29-day period.
Wow.
And I went in yesterday to get a new ferritin test done. I'm waiting on those test results, and depending on those results, then I'll either be done for now or have one more time to go. I guess it was in December, we had genetic tests done because there's hereditary hemochromatosis component, although you can get too much iron in other ways. So we had to wait a few weeks for those tests to come in. I do have 2 copies of the H63D gene, and that's the lesser one. And if for the people that have that specific combination, 6.7% of them have too much iron. There's another variation, and without having it in front of me, I can't tell you what it is, but if you have 2 copies of that or 1 copy of that, with the H63, then that's the more serious form, and you can really build up iron. In some cases, you can have ferritin levels over 1,000, and I've read where people have been having blood draws weekly for over a year to get their iron down.
But that's assuming that. So you didn't have iron hemochromatosis when you were a 20-year-old, right?
I don't know. Unless you have the ferritin test, you don't know what your levels are. I did find a lab report that the ferritin test was done in 2010, and I was over 240 at that point.
Right. And you're how old now?
60.
Right. I'm just pointing out that these things tend to happen as the body ages, and that genetic expression is the result of the environment inside the body, and if it's ideal or not. So I don't know if you want me to comment now, or if you still want to continue sharing your story before I do.
Well, just can tell you some of the other things that we did there. We were already on curcumin, turmeric and curcumin. Some people have luck in chelating iron with that. I had started trying the IP6 and had been on that about 3 weeks when I got the prescription for the blood draws. And I'd gone in for another ferritin test, and it actually had jumped up to 447 at that point.
Okay.
So that pretty much rounds that out. I don't have the whole darn list in front of me. There's several things that supplements we're taking for blood sugar. I also
do you remember what they were that you're taking for blood sugar?
The main one has been berberine. Like I say, I've got some others that I'm taking, and if you ask me, I might remember, but try and remember off the top of my head. We're taking probably more than 20 supplements right now. And the other thing that I had that Becky didn't is my blood pressure stuck at a high point. In fact, there was one time I went in and almost didn't get my blood taken because they have a cutoff. If your blood pressure is greater than 180 over 100, either one of those, and both of mine were, they can't take your blood. And I first added nattokinase on that, and then before this last time, I added a whole bunch of other things, including allicin and hawthornberry and celery seed, besides upping my potassium and magnesium. And when I took my blood pressure Wednesday, I don't remember the exact specifics, but it was in the upper 130s over the upper 80s, which is a much bigger improvement over what it had been since it was first checked when I went to the VA. I believe that was in November. So a lot of progress, and now you can comment and give me some suggestions.
Okay. So one of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of is that pH regulation. And I'll talk about how that plays a role in your health on the other side of the break.
Sounds good. John Regan, Stephen Heuer. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is John Regan at the controls today. My website is thefinancialstateoftheunion.com, and I know that's a long one, so if you go to easyE33.org and click on the news tab, you can find my link or my post from the 2nd of January where I had a show here on USA Prepares talking about iron and insulin, and has a lot of links on there. So there's some decent reference material there. Stephen's website, Synergistic Nutrition, is sgn80.com. That's SGN and the numbers 80.com. Stephen?
Yeah, John. So this is something that I really would like more and more people to understand because it can make the vast difference in people's health, and that is pH. So if you look at the research work of Dr. Carl Reich, a medical doctor in the 1950s to the 70s, he devoted his medical practice to a nutritional-oriented practice, and he came to the conclusion that the pH of the body was the foundation of our health. And he observed that when his patients were showing a saliva pH of 6.5 to 6, they were developing physical ailments. If they were below 6 pH in their saliva, they were already dealing with some serious health issue. And he would change their diet, put them on some supplements, and over the course of several weeks to months, their pH would climb to 7 to 7.5, and their diseases would either improve or go away completely. So, and then if you look at the research work of Royal Rife, the famous scientist that was able to develop a microscope to see living virus, fungus, and bacteria and watch their life cycle, he cultured them and would change the pH of the culture medium. And in his observations, if he changed it too acidic or too alkaline, then these organisms would grow. And if the pH was neutral in the culture medium, then these pathogens couldn't grow. Then if you look at the blood pH. The blood pH is supposed to be 7.35 to 7.45. And when our body's pH, as reflected in the saliva, is showing below 7, so 6.9, 6.8 or lower, then we are in an acid state, and the blood pH is being threatened by that. And so what ends up happening is if this pH becomes too acidic, then the blood pH is threatened so much, and the blood pH can't change outside this range of 7.35 to 4.5, otherwise we die. Then what ends up happening is the blood will sacrifice your red blood cells to free up 3 amino acids, histidine, arginine, and lysine, which are capable of absorbing that excess acidity in the blood. And then you end up with sacrificing, millions, billions of red blood cells to maintain this pH, and you're therefore losing your iron. And then your body's not, you could say, excreting it quickly enough. It's not designed to handle that much, so it builds up in the system. And that's a theory of why hemochromatosis is happening. And then the correction is to adopt your the blood type diet for your blood type. You eat the foods that are compatible for your blood type, because when you eat foods that aren't compatible with your blood type, the lectins in those foods that are coming into your body will bond to the sugars of your cells. So whether it's the red cells or the intestinal lining or any tissue of the body, these lectins will bond to it and temporarily suppress that cell function, damage the cell, and so when the cell is suppressed in its function, instead of efficiently creating energy, ATP, for every molecule of glucose, it's not doing that efficiently, and you're ending up producing more lactic acid and less actual ATP. So the diet is key to free up your cells of your body to produce more energy and less acids. And then to make up for what's not in the soil and in the food, you have to take alkalinizing supplements typically to get yourself back into that favorable pH range. And so Dr. Kerry Reams was a famous agronomist or a soil scientist that was able to restore fertility to soils and basically raise the Brix levels in produce so that they end up being very nutritious. And in all his research, he found that this pH phenomenon applied both to animals and humans, and he was able to, back in the 30s when he made all these discoveries, he was able to apply this pH science to human health, and simply by taking a supplement called lime water, which is not the citrus lime, but it's the actual mineral lime, that's one way you're going to start shifting your pH more aggressively back to the alkaline state, and I'll share more on the other side of the break.
John Regan, Stephen Heuer. We'll be right back. This is John Regan sitting in for Vincent today. Have Stephen Heuer with us. And it's going to be a very interesting show about health today. And it's not just about me. There's a lot of people out there, because of all the sugar that's in our Western diet, that are suffering from insulin resistance. And there's actually more people out there that have too much iron than too little. So these are conditions that do damage over long periods of time. So it's important for everybody, and the sooner you take care of it, the less damage you have to deal with. Stephen?
Yeah, and you can really correct this if you apply with things that I'm teaching. This is all proven stuff. But so the pH, as I was speaking before the break, a person would basically need to observe a diet that's compatible for their blood type, as taught by Peter J. D'Adamo in the book Live Right for Your Type. That'll make a huge difference starting right off the bat. But then supplementation, because soils are demineralized. And even if you buy organic, the soils still don't have what they should have in them, and produce is picked unripe. So it doesn't have the mineral sugars in it that so dramatically regulate our pH and our liver health and protein synthesis and a lot of things. So supplementing with alkalinizing elements is key. And our body's mineral requirements are 80% calcium and 20% the other elements. So in keeping with nature's rules here, it's best to supplement with calcium to alkalize than it is with sodium or potassium or magnesium, the other alkaline elements. And the inorganic version of these elements is the lime water that I mentioned earlier, which is calcium hydroxide in the liquid state. That is a alkalinizing supplement that gets into the system quickly in this liquid state, but it doesn't stay in the system as long, but it gets in quickly. And then the other one is called Cal-2, which is also calcium hydroxide and also calcium carbonate in pill form, so you get a slow-release mechanism of alkalinizing the body. And by simply taking 2 or 3 tablets of Cal-2, twice a day, depending upon your body size, it might need to go up as much as 5 tablets or capsules, and then taking 1 to 3 tablespoons of lime water twice a day with your meals, you can shift your pH back to this alkaline state of 7 to 7.5, which is the ideal. So I had a chiropractor friend that went to Nepal on a vacation one time, hiking the Nepal mountains, and this is very high mountain, 17,000 feet, and typically Americans aren't hardy enough to endure this, very thin air and be able to carry significant weight on their backpack. So they give it off to the Nepalese men. So these guys are, 5 foot 7 inch tall, short, statured men that live and work at this high elevation and carry these 400-pound backpacks for the tourists. And they do this all day long. And then he measured their saliva pH, and it was 7.2 to 7.4. So this 7.2 to 7.5 is actually the most ideal saliva pH. And this pH reading that you want to take is done in the morning. So after you wake up, before you brush your teeth, drink any juice or water. Water you can drink, but not food. Can't eat food. Can't brush your teeth. And then you measure it for 3 days in a row with pH paper, and you'll get an average of what your pH is. And then you'll know where you're at. And these suggestions I've just mentioned can make miraculous difference. Dr. Kerry Reams, that was the first to pioneer this pH phenomenon, taking supplementation to push your pH in an alkaline direction. He had major miraculous healings in lots of people back in his day doing this. And then you've got looking at the Hunza people. So the Hunza people are the longest-lived people on the planet, and books written about them in the past, decades. They could live to be 140 years on average, 120 and 140 years on average. And their water they drink comes from glacial snowmelt. And so the glaciers grind down the mountainsides and create silt of the rocks, and this silt's picked up by the melting glaciers into the rivers, and this is the water they drink, and that's what they irrigate their fields with. So they're eating mineral-rich food, they're drinking mineral-rich water, inorganic mineral-rich water, and the water is so thick in minerals that you can't even see through it. It's an opaque white. They call it glacial milk. And they consume about 1/3 a cup of rock, calcium, and minerals, trace minerals, in their drinking water every day. And they don't have calcium buildup in their joints or kidney stone development or anything. So the idea that inorganic minerals are going to cause calcification is not correct, because one of the things that regulates this is vitamin K2. So vitamin K2 is responsible for your body making matrix GLA protein. And matrix GLA protein is responsible for causing your body to be able to create osteocalcin. So osteocalcin is bone protein. And so vitamin K2 is what enables you to both make new bone and also to, vitamin A also does this. Vitamin A and K2, they're involved in dissolving old bone. And when you make new bone, you're making what's called carboxylated osteocalcin. And that particular substance is responsible for maintaining the proper bone density and preventing calcium buildup in the arteries or the soft tissues, or creating, depositing where it's not supposed to go. So you don't have to worry about consuming inorganic minerals when you have vitamin K2 in the diet, which people living an agrarian life like the Hunza people, that's no problem, because all the animals eat grass, and when they eat grass, the vitamin K1 in the grass is converted into vitamin K2 in the fatty tissues of the egg yolk or the fat of the cheese or the milk or the meat of the animal. So you get it in that way. But that particular version is called minoquinone 4, vitamin K2, minoquinone 4, and that's not as strong as minoquinone 7. And minoquinone 7 comes from the fermentation of soybeans, the nattokinase, the natto organism that creates this vitamin K2 as it ferments on soy. So minoquinone 7 is much more potent. You need far less dosage to create this beneficial response of increasing matrix GLA protein and osteocalcin. And for you, the benefit of osteocalcin is that it activates the tissues to become insulin sensitive. So I think one of the most significant ways to improve insulin sensitivity is by taking the 3 fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin K2, vitamin D, and vitamin A together, minoquinone 7 in the, we have a formula called K2 Plus that's got this ideal ratio of K2, vitamin A, and vitamin D all together. So you can dissolve old bone, make new bone on a regular basis, maintain bone density, prevent osteoporosis, and also increase this osteocalcium content, which has this beneficial effect on our bodies by improving insulin sensitivity. So I think that you could positively impact this iron hemochromatosis condition by following this advice, getting the pH correct. And, a lot of people don't realize, this blood pH is alkaline, and it's what also creates your lymph, and the lymph creates your saliva. So it's, pretty strong evidence that our saliva pH is supposed to be alkaline. The urine pH is always supposed to be acidic, and it fluctuates wildly according to what you eat. It's the saliva pH that's the most important for people to keep track of and to modify. And when you eat this blood type diet, you so improve your cell's ability to make energy and less waste. That's going to shift your pH dramatically in the positive direction, and then you make up for what's not alkalinizing, the lack of alkalinity in the food supply, by taking supplementation to overcome that. And the other thing is that when you combine an acid and an alkali, so you take a little bit of vinegar and you combine it with baking soda, what happens? You get. Go ahead.
Yeah, you get a nice reaction and.
Yeah, this bubbly, fizzy reaction and all this, basically as the acids and alkalis are combining and neutralizing each other, they're releasing a ton of energy. And that's what happens in the body. A lot of people aren't aware that, there's not only one way to make energy in the body in the form of ATP from the mitochondria. There's also a way to make energy by taking alkalinizing supplementation that will combine with the acids in your body and will release energy that you can feel. It's quite profound. So that covers, and so those are my recommendations for you with regards to helping you with insulin sensitivity and helping you with reversing the iron hemochromatosis.
Okay. Well, before I sidetracked you, you wanted to talk about growth hormone today.
Yeah, I work with a supplement that's basically a peptide. It's a growth factor peptide that you can spray in the mouth, hold it for 90 seconds, it absorbs, it activates the hypothalamus of the brain, which then releases, that's producing more growth hormone. It's acting like growth hormone. It's causing you to produce growth hormone-releasing hormone. And then that activates the pituitary to produce growth hormone. And then the growth hormone produced in the body is called somatotropin. And somatotropin goes throughout the body, and activates the tissues to open up and absorb amino acids, and so the cell can make proteins. And then it also activates your body to produce IGF-1. So the predominant way by which you measure growth hormone in the body is your IGF-1 levels. And so we've done studies with this product, years ago on men and women over the age of 50 who took this for a 6-month period of time, and the women experienced a IGF-1 increase of 102%, and the men experienced an increase of 109%. And with all the side benefits: fat loss, diminished wrinkles, reversal graying of the hair, deeper sleep, better mood, more energy, higher sex drive, all kinds of things. And so that's the study. But in my actual practice, I've had people grow back the cartilage in their joints, reverse osteoporosis, reverse gum recession, get rid of a liver problem. I had one guy had a liver problem, have it totally go away. Improve your vision, diminish wrinkles, losing body fat. I had 2 people grow back their discs in their back so that all their pinched nerve pain problem went away. And then there's I've had 3 people reverse kidney failure and get off dialysis using this product. So this is a heavy lifter power product called Synergy One that anybody over 40 is going to love the effects. It's just phenomenal. What most people don't realize is that growth hormones produced in the highest amounts in the body from ages, infancy to age 28, and it's one of the reasons why you sleep so well, because it's more important for sleep than melatonin, and that's one of the benefits people experience when they take this product. And I'll share more on the other side of the break.
It's John Regan, Stephen Heuer. We'll see you in a few minutes. This is John Regan with Stephen Heuer. We're now talking about growth hormone, and I am so glad that you're talking about this today. My wife injured her knees probably about 30 years ago. Gives her problems. I injured my back about 17 years ago, have a compressed disc in my lower back. So I'm really excited and want to see what this might be able to do for us. I was also reading the information you sent me on growth hormone, and you were talking about traumatic brain injury. There was one morning on my commute to the Pentagon, an 18-wheeler decided he wanted to be where my car was, and he only tapped my rear fender, but that was enough. Traveling at highway speed, it fishtailed, and then it flipped around, going backwards through the other two lanes of traffic. Fortunately, it was the end of rush hour, so there weren't any cars there. The tires on the passenger side came off the rim and made a mark on the pavement, so the rest of the time I was commuting to the Pentagon, I could tell exactly where this happened. And then the car flipped front over back and rolled a couple of times. And I was nice enough to stop on the median, so I wasn't blocking traffic. Might say the car was totaled, but at least the radio still worked and the driver's door opened. And I really believe I suffered a traumatic brain injury during that. I was wearing my seatbelt, and had I not been, I have no doubt when it did that flip that my head would have hit the ceiling and broken my neck, and I'd probably be dead, and if not that, at least paralyzed. But, your brain doesn't have a seatbelt, so it's still hitting around the inside of your skull. And knowing what I know now, I think I did pick up some injury at that point.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Before I go back into the growth hormone subject, I want to just digress a second and mention something I forgot to mention about the pH. When your blood is threatened by these acids all the time coming in excess amounts, it will actually hold on to more water to dilute this toxin, this irritant, this excess acid. So your blood water volume increases, which increases your blood pressure. So following this protocol that I suggested and, getting it so that excess water is out of the blood vessel system can be one way by which blood pressure returns back to normal. So regarding the growth hormone subject, though, virtually every cell of the body is a receptor site for growth hormone. And, after you reach age 28, every decade thereafter, your growth hormone production declines by approximately 14%, which is one of the main reasons why the body ages. Because if your body has this youthful level of growth hormone all the time, then all the cells are instructed to absorb amino acids, make proteins, and making proteins is the key to longevity. So if you're making more, say, telomerase enzyme, you're going to be repairing the telomeres on the ends of your DNA, lengthening them on a regular basis, and that's what actually keeps the body biologically young. And that's actually one of the things that raising growth hormone does. I believe the fact is that taking growth hormone or increasing growth hormone levels in the body it can increase your telomerase enzyme levels by up to 35%, which is a big deal because then you're going to, again, repair the length of the telomere. And if you could literally keep lengthening the telomere to the youthful level you had when you were in your 20s, then you're literally going to stay biologically at that age. It's not about chronology. It's not about being on the planet, 60, 70, 80, 100 years, and therefore expecting to be old. There are people that are, using high-tech nutritional intervention that are outwitting nature and staying biologically younger for a much longer period of time. So with regards to the brain injury, by taking growth hormone, you're going to facilitate the increased production of albumin protein, globulin protein out of the liver. These are proteins that are like globulins involved in making your immune proteins, and the albumin's involved in basically acting as an antioxidant in the body and repairing many tissues of the body. So you're going to support healing of your brain by taking growth hormone. So you can actually increase your healing, which I'll share more on that on the other side of the break.
I'll be back after the top of the hour break news, and it's really a good show today. John Regan, Stephen Heuer. Welcome to hour number 2 of USA Prepares. This is your captain, John Regan, at the controls today. Vincent is out on farming educational duties, and we'll be back on Monday. We have with us today Stephen Heuer of Synergistic Nutrition. His website is sgn80.com, SGN and the numbers 80.com. And we're picking up about growth hormone where we left off last hour. And if you're just joining us, I highly recommend you go to listen to hour number 1 from the archives. Stephen?
Yeah, so the other thing that's valuable about increasing growth hormone levels to what you had when you were younger is the repair of your kidney, liver, lung system, and these 3 organ systems regulate your blood pressure. So, it's common that you can, heal the kidneys and heal the lungs and heal the liver, and thus in turn naturally lower blood pressure with regards to the hormonal aspect of how blood pressure is regulated. So that's something else that might benefit you.
Now, when I went to the VA, they did a lot of lab tests, and I do have some kidney and liver tests that are a bit out of range. So definitely have some repair work to do there.
Yeah, so basically people always experience a decline in growth hormone, and so it's one of the reasons that we age. And being able to take a supplement that increases it is pretty striking because typically other products on the market, they're called secretagogues. There's studies that have been done where if you're under 40 years of age taking a secretagogue, you'll get results with increasing IGF-1 for about 4 months, and then it doesn't work after that. Your sensitivity to it stops. And then if you're over 40, it doesn't work at all. So, and there's a lot of products out there that are trying to stimulate the release of growth hormone IGF-1 by using secretagogues that, whether they're homeopathic or whether they're amino acid formulations, I found them to be very ineffective. This is a very unique product that it delivers amazing results, and I think you'll be very happy with the results that you'll get. It's a small little bottle, 1 ounce bottle. You get like a month's supply in one bottle. 3 sprays twice a day. You hold it in the cheek area of the mouth for 90 seconds so it can absorb. And, the results speak for themselves. I invite anyone that's challenged with their health at all. This is one supplement that, you'll get great results. It's guaranteed that you'll get great results for your money back, too.
One of the, it seems like I've got, one condition after another. I was either 40 or about to turn 40 when I made a trip to the doctor complaining about, fatigue. And one of the tests he did was check my testosterone.
Oh, yeah.
And it was below 200, I think around 170, and still is, which is pretty low if you were an 80-year-old.
Yeah,
and
that is low.
We tried all kinds of things, start off with the stimulating hormone, and I think I managed to gain about 30 points using that.
You can, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
Well, just when I found out about hemochromatosis, my first thought is that could be part of the problem because iron does damage your organs, and that's one of it. But looking back at how that's built up, 20 years ago, I probably didn't have a damaging level of iron. However, when I was at the Pentagon, you do a lot of walking, and I was diagnosed with Achilles tendonitis and was put on prescription strength levels of ibuprofen for several months.
Oh, that's going to damage you big time.
Yeah, and now we know that that does damage. So that's my theory on why my testosterone is low now.
Yeah, I had an acquaintance that took ibuprofen on a daily basis for his chronic pain, and I knew him in his 20s, and in his 30s he died of kidney failure, and that's one of the things that happens with ibuprofen usage. It damages your kidneys and other parts of the body, I'm sure, as well. Kidneys in Chinese medicine are the seat of your energy and your sex drive. And so the stronger your kidney adrenal system is, the the stronger your sex drive is. So you want to always protect your kidneys. And as I said, we've had 3 people that were on dialysis use Synergy 1 and get off dialysis because it's that powerful. Kidneys don't naturally repair themselves. They lack the organelle called a ribosome. So your adrenal and kidney system doesn't have inside of its cells, it doesn't have any of these organelles called ribosomes. But your liver does, and other tissues do. And the ribosome is what enables the cell to make protein within itself and repair itself. So when you experience damage to the liver, and this is something some people have heard, it's like if you lose half your liver, you can grow it back, and it does grow back many times in people's bodies. That's because it has ribosomes within the cells to cause all the cells to repair and grow back to their genetic normal size. And then with the kidneys and adrenals, they don't have that, so they just tend to go downhill. So when people have high blood pressure for prolonged periods of time, use drugs. Drugs are notorious. High blood pressure medication drugs are notorious for causing kidney damage, kidney failure. You end up not repairing them unless you know how to increase stem cell levels within the kidneys and adrenals and convert those stem cells into brand new cells, and also act upon the kidney from the outside with increasing IGF-1 levels that will then increase the repair rate of the kidneys. So I have a whole protocol called the Kidney Regeneration Report, which goes into a supplement that is called ADR Medics, or KDN Medics and ADR Medics, that will activate the adult stem cells in the kidneys to convert into new functional kidney cells, and the same with the adrenals. And then also taking this Synergy 1, because that's increasing the IGF-1, which increases the repair rate of all tissues of the body, including the kidneys. And, yeah, it's worked. I've had great success. Yeah.
Is there more you wanted to talk about on growth hormone?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people are out there, they've got osteoporosis, and they don't know that they can basically help reverse that with a good protocol, and, increasing growth hormone helps do that. I had a dentist that did x-rays after being on Synergy 1 for several months, showed that he was reversed his osteoporosis in his jawbone. And I had another client that had osteopenia, that she, had for 2 years been doing nutritional supplementation to try and reverse it. Then she got on my protocol and then redid her bone scan tests, like within, I think, 2 or 3 months, and she reversed her osteopenia, and the Synergy 1 was a part of that protocol. So that's something a lot of people out there need to know about. The other thing is the testosterone levels that you were talking about. You can, like I said, if you can really strengthen the kidney adrenal system, that's going to help your sex drive or testosterone levels in general. But you are going to activate the production of more testosterone from taking Synergy 1. It's just you're going to activate the hypothalamus, you're going to activate the pituitary. Pituitary is going to produce more luteinizing hormone. That's going to stimulate the production of more testosterone in the testes. And so many people, so many men have reported to us that they have this dramatic increase in their sex drive. The other thing is that the level of free testosterone versus protein-bound testosterone is also important. And, you can take supplements to help increase your free testosterone levels. We have an herbal formula that helps do that. And then just following the blood type diet, eating only those foods that are compatible for your blood type, that's going to, again, free up all the tissue's ability to produce energy, so that will help as well with testosterone levels. And I also would like to talk a little bit about methylation just for you, because, chronic fatigue is the inability to make energy, and, about 50% of the population, it's estimated, is considered to be what's called undermethylators. What happens is that there's this compound called, it's carbon-hydrogen compound, so it's 1 carbon and 3 hydrogen. It's called a methyl group, and the rate at which, both the quantity of the methyl group in the body and the rate at which you're able to use it is what we're talking about here. So it's involved in all chemical reactions, whether it's protein synthesis, whether it's the creation of neurotransmitters that controls your mood and your energy, your focus, whether it's the creation of enzymes, whether it's detoxification, your ability to make energy, is all about using this carbon-hydrogen compound called the methyl group. And if you are deficient in methyl groups, then you will have a deficiency of energy production. You will be a poor detoxifier and all that. So you could take actual supplemental methyl-rich groups like betaine, like SAMe, like there's a few things out there in supplement you can take. And then the other is taking methylated B vitamins. So your B vitamins in your diet, whether you're getting it from your food or supplements, are typically in food, they're always in their inactive state. So you got B1, B2, B6, B5, niacin, folate, B12. They're all inactive in the food state and or in most supplements. So your body has to methylate them through 5 methylation steps to make them active. So if you don't have enough of these methyl groups, you're not going to do that. And that's common. So you take methylated B1, B2, and B6, which is called triphos B, and all of a sudden you get dramatic increase in energy production and protein synthesis. And that means focus, mood, energy. It's just phenomenal. Triphos B is enterically coated so that it doesn't get destroyed in the digestive process. It will only break down in the small intestines. So then the coenzymatic form of B1, B2, and B6 are then entered into the bloodstream, enter into the cell. B1 and B2 fuel energy production. B6 fuels protein synthesis and brain chemical production, neurotransmitters. So that can make a dramatic difference for you. And then there's also taking the final end result of all these metabolic functions is to create ATP. And when you get older, your number of organelles called the mitochondria within the cell decline. So these organelles produce the ATP. So you need not only the nutrients, like in the triphos B, to support the creation of the ATP, but you also need to support your ATP levels with supplemental ATP. So you can take enterically coated ATP and dramatically improve your energy. And I'll give you a case history of an 80-year-old when we get to the other side of the break.
Okay, this is John Regan and Stephen Heuer. We'll be right back. This is John Regan with Stephen Heuer. Stephen, you were talking about a case study for ATP when the break came up?
Yeah, the gentleman that makes this product, he's in his early 80s. I think it's 81 or 82. And so the enterically coated ATP that will only break down in the small intestines that he invented, he takes that. He takes the triphos B because when you get older, your methylation, everything declines, including methylation. And he takes his free-form amino acids. He's created these special free-form amino acid formulas. That's where the amino acids aren't connected to any other amino acids. They're in their single state, so they absorb into the system, into the body, in like 45 minutes. You can feel them. And so his amino acids, his triphos B, and his ATP, and a B complex that's got the active forms of all the B vitamins in them, he takes regularly every day. Well, he still runs his own company in his early 80s. I'd say he has the mental and physical energy of a 30-year-old. When you talk to him, he's just phenomenal. And I asked him, he said, do you still have your muscle mass? And he said, yes, I do. He said, the medical profession is studying me because I'm such a unique case history. So point is that, we don't have to accept the decline in our physical and mental energy as we age if we know what to do, if we know what supplementation to take and eating the correct diet. And Don Tyson, who I just spoke about, is a perfect example. And
that diet part is such a big component of this. And I emailed you about a book that I recently finished called The Case Against Sugar.
Yeah.
And I knew a lot of things about sugar, but after reading this book, the history is so much more disgusting than what I knew. And the big bottom line, before I get into anything else on that, is before reading that book, I thought if we just cut back to a small amount of sugar like there was before industrialization set in, and I'm talking, maybe like 2 or 3 pounds a year, which we're many, many, many times that in our American diet now, that a small amount probably wouldn't cause damage. Well, by the time I got to the end of this book, it talked about when the diabetes problem started exploding in Victorian England, that the annual consumption of sugar for the people having that problem was 5 pounds a year. Now, we we can't really visualize that. Well, those of us that are old enough know what a 5-pound bag looks like. They come in 4-pound bags now. But on a daily basis, that works out to 1.5 teaspoons a day.
Okay.
So that's level measured teaspoons. So if you grab your spoon and just put 1 heaping spoon into your coffee every morning, you're going to get 5 pounds of sugar a year. And unfortunately, sugar is in so many things now. You probably have seen the studies where they blame processed meat on diabetes. And yes, there's things in there, nitrates, nitrites, MSG that are bad for you. But there's also sugar in a lot of these processed meats. Pick up, bacon or lunch meat, even the organic kind, and you find sugar in the ingredient list.
Yep.
I bought some organic chicken stock at the store. I didn't bother reading the ingredient list. Down there on the list, organic cane sugar. Well, it doesn't matter if it's organic or not. It's still sugar.
Yeah.
And I reading the entire history of this, it's almost impossible today to try and do any meaningful studies. We do have reports from doctors, a lot of them from Britain, back when the British Empire was expanding, and they got to watch the transition of native cultures into the Western style. We've also some American doctors in history that witnessed the same thing as some Indian tribes transitioned from their diet to ours. And the evidence is pretty compelling. And I'll talk a bit about that when we come back. It's John Regan with Stephen Heuer. Welcome back. Today you have John Regan and Stephen Heuer. I was beginning to talk about the case against sugar before the break. And if you were listening Monday, you're going to hear a little repeat here. It's my opinion that processed sugar, which is not just the granulated sugar that we use, but things like the high fructose corn syrup, all that stuff that just doesn't exist in nature. Okay, I think we're back now. That processed sugar should be a Schedule I drug. It's that damaging to the body. But just to let you know, some of the other things that I found out in there is the history of how sugar came to be in our diet. It was originally the Muslims that brought it back from Southeast Asia. And this also has a connection to the slave trade because they needed slaves to work this. And as we migrated to the New World, sugar plantations were set up, and of course they needed the slaves. So that whole social issue that still plagues us today has its grounding in sugar. I also found out about the link between sugar and tobacco. And this, I'm not talking about cigar and pipe tobacco, but the tobacco that's used to make cigarettes. Farmers in Virginia found a way of curing their tobacco that increased the sugar content. Farmers in other states would soak their tobacco in sugar. In fact, early on they used maple syrup for that. So there's this sugar connection with the addictive and health issues of tobacco. Then there's the problem with science. And I already knew medical science had been compromised. I'd found out years ago that the pharmaceutical industry had made massive donations to the medical schools in the 1920s, and that's why we have the medical, mafia that we have today, where doctors only learn, they do a good job of diagnosing, but they only learn how to treat symptoms because that makes a lot more money. Well, in the first half of the 20th century, a lot of things were not done as scientifically as we supposedly do them now. It was opinion-based, and if the experts thought something, that's what they ran with. So the expert opinion was the problem was fat. So every study that was done was to show that the problem was fat. And when the study didn't show that, they would say that the study was flawed or was inconclusive. Then when you get to the second part of the 20th century, you've got all the fake science going on where you get different results on whether the industry is paying for the study or if it's done by a neutral third party. And one of the things that happened after this book was published, and we found out about this at the end of last year, is that the sugar industry had done studies where they found out that sugar did cause things like heart disease and cancer. This is back in 1968, and they wrapped it up and kept it secret. So we've got 50 years of damage. Of course, we had similar things with the tobacco industry. They knew about how damaging their product was. Information's coming out about how Monsanto knows how damaging glyphosate is. So you shouldn't be too surprised about all of that. It also talks about Ansel Keys, who I knew about with the infamous 7-country study where he cherry-picked the data to try to prove that it was fat that caused problems. But when you look at history and all the observations, the big difference was the sugar consumption. It wasn't even the starches. It was when the sugar was added to the diet, that's when things like the dental cavities occurred. Weston Price did work on this. And then that's kind of the canary in the coal mine type thing. And then it starts damaging other parts of your body. Sucrose, the granulated sugar that we're used to, is half glucose, half fructose. The high fructose corn syrup has 55% fructose. So when you ingest this, there's, unlike with food, there's nothing to buffer it. It goes right into your system. Does a big shock. Your pancreas has to create insulin to normalize the blood sugar level, the glucose level. But the fructose gets processed by the liver. So that's your 1-2 punch. You're attacking the liver and the pancreas, and there's getting to be more evidence that the fructose is a bigger contributor to insulin resistance than the glucose component. So that's my quick wrap-up of the case against sugar. Stephen?
Well, there's another thing that eating excess sugar does is that the thing is that sugar in general, as it occurs in nature, fruits and honey and stuff, is that those natural sweeteners are, they have all of their vitamins and minerals and polyphenols and all these other things present. So sugar is properly packaged in its natural form from fruits and I believe also honey. But if you're using white sugar in your diet, and I've written about this and try to educate people on this, is that you're also going to create these things called advanced glycation end products. And these little buggers, these chemicals, are very toxic to our body. I mean, they deposit in your tissues, in your brain, in your kidneys, and you basically help cause your kidney failure and your organ failure and your deterioration of your body is the deposition of the advanced glycation end product in the tissues. And there's two ways by which people are ingesting that. One is dry heat cooking of meats. Dry heat cooking of meats, barbecue, baking, is creating advanced glycation end products in high amounts, which you can avoid if you steam, like poach your salmon instead of, barbecue it or whatever, or dry heat cook it. And the other is your sugar consumption, and that you can control that pretty easily by, not consuming white sugar at all anymore. Another reason that this insulin insensitivity has, like a tsunami come over America so that so many people have this as a problem and become obese is that monosodium glutamate in its food-derived form, which is not called MSG, they call it natural flavor, or hydrolyzed yeast or hydrolyzed soy protein. There's these various names they have for it, but it's typically natural flavor. And the word natural flavor on an ingredient list isn't always MSG. It can be a natural flavor of whatever, strawberry or blueberry or whatever. But the food-derived MSG that's added to the fast food supply, that's added to most commercial pre-processed foods, whether it's your smokehouse almonds, whether it's your Pringle potato chips, whether it's your ice cream Ben & Jerry's or whatever, or your pizzas or spaghetti sauce, or there's just a bazillion things that this food-derived MSG is added to. And the studies they do on mice or rats, when they actually want to, the medical pharmaceutical industry wants to study a drug for its fat-reducing capabilities, they have to first induce obesity in the animal. So they inject under the skin of the rat MSG, and the rat becomes fat. Then they give it this drug to try and make it lose weight, and then they have to kill the animal to determine how much damage might have been done to the organ systems from the drug they gave it. So they have to inject into the bloodstream MSG, and then that kills the animal. So that is the principal reason why I think, in my opinion, that there's been this creation of insulin insensitivity at such an accelerated rate than white sugar alone can do, and this crazy obesity epidemic in America. Because if you go back to, before 1945, before chemical agriculture came onto the scene, our ancestors ate sugar and they ate white flour in abundance, and we didn't see the prevalence of obesity and the prevalence of diabetes and insulin insensitivity as we see after 1945, with a combination of white sugar and the MSG in the diet. And so people need to just wake up and realize that they need to buy their own food and make their own food, because most pre-prepared stuff, especially fast food restaurants, you're just eating death. You're eating accelerated aging.
Yeah, and it's hidden in so many places. I mean, ketchup is horrible. I went and read the ingredients on my Worcestershire sauce. After distilled white vinegar, then it's molasses and high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
I've looked at the salsa, sugar in the salsa. I mean,
but here's the thing: the brain's preferential fuel is glucose. So, and of all the 5 tastes on our taste buds, sweet, sour, bitter, salt, savory, we have more taste buds for sweet than any other taste. So I believe that we are designed by the Creator to require and benefit from carbohydrates in the diet. And as I was saying, if you go back historically, even further than before 1945, you go back 200, 300, 400 years or more, grains were used as a staple in the diet. And it's called the staff of life because it was such an essential component to the diet. There was no diabetes, no obesity back, 400, 500, more years ago, eating carbohydrates. Not white sugar, but eating natural carbohydrates. Carbohydrates have become demonized in our current modern era because of the problems with how grains are raised. I mean, you've got not only the refining of the grain into white flour that's contributed to this insulin insensitivity diabetes problem, but you've also got that grains commercially raised are commonly now sprayed with glyphosate 3 days before harvest so that they can dry out, and this makes it easier to harvest. I mean, this is the most criminal, insane, diabolical thing going on in our country is glyphosates being sprayed on commercial crops so they're dried out, your grains and your legumes, to make it easier to harvest. I mean, this is moronic behavior of your farmers, selling their souls to the dollar and Monsanto. And, this has to stop because it's destroying our bodies. Eating glyphosate will destroy your gut, create holes in your gut, making it so that you start absorbing your proteins and substances in your food in their whole undigested state. And guess what? You've now got autoimmunity. You've now got diabetes. You've now got inflammatory problems that you can't get rid of, and you're just constantly sick because of glyphosate in the food supply. And, I just can't believe the immorality of so many people in business. It's just insane.
And it's like you say, it's truly disgusting what these companies are doing to us, and they keep on doing it once they know it's damaging because it's profitable. This is John Regan with Stephen Heuer. We'll be back after the break. This is John Regan with Stephen Heuer of Synergistic Nutrition, His website is sgn80.com, sgn numbers 80.com. See if we can wrap it up in the time we have left. I have a post on my website from when I was on USA Prepares January 2nd. It's on the news tab of the financialstateoftheunion.com. I have a number of links. The one that talks about the studies the sugar industry hid is the next to last link in the post. There is also a link in there for walk-in labs, so you don't have to go to the doctor to get these tests done. You have your choice of LabCorp or Quest, and you can get this done in all but 5 states, mostly in the Northeast. The last time I checked, both the serum ferritin and the hemoglobin A1C tests were just $29 each. And if you click on that link, that is an affiliate link for me, and I do make a small commission if you do that, and I appreciate if you choose to use walk-in labs that you use that link. Stephen, we've talked about a lot of conditions the last 2 hours, and you talked about a lot of different products. I was wondering if you just might be able to summarize some of those so we can find them easier on your website.
Sure. So on our website, there's some of the products have their own tab. So at the top of the website, there's 2 bars. One's a fuchsia-colored bar, the other one's a green-colored bar. And in that bar system, you'll find Synergy 1 listed as by its own tab. So you can click on it, and you'll be taken to the page and get more explanation, and you can order it there. The lime alkalinization supplements are not listed with their own tab, so you have to put into the search box on the right-hand side of the website the term lime water, L-I-M-E, water, and the term Cal2, C-A-L, hyphen, and the Roman numeral 2, and then you'll be able to find those products. And, of course, anytime you want to find anything you can't find, because there's actually an alphabetized list of supplements, and then there's products by category you can click on, too. You can also call us, and, we're happy to educate and guide and teach and show you where the products are, or take orders by phone, too. So that's how you find the products. I did want to say one other thing about polyphenols and is that you can really help with that insulin sensitivity and improving it by including cranberry juice and strawberries and stuff and other polyphenol-rich fruits, since they've done studies and shown that those polyphenols improve insulin sensitivity for people, and that keeps you leaner. And the polyphenols also feed the growth of the bacteria in the gut that will, in turn, make it so that you stay leaner, because the bacteria in the gut determine to a large degree what you crave and what you eat, and the polyphenols feed the bugs that will help you crave good foods and stay leaner.
Yes, and that's another thing. If you take sugar by itself or even just orange juice on an empty stomach, it messes with your good bacteria and helps feed the bad bacteria. So, like we were just talking about, get sugar out of your diet. It doesn't belong there. You can still, enjoy things. Fruit isn't the problem. You're not going to sit down and eat pounds and pounds of fruit anyway at a time. And when you do eat fruit, you've got fiber in there and other factors that, buffer the natural sugar in the fruit versus these processed foods.
One other thing is that there was a man that, a fairly famous man called Augenis Vonderplanitz that suffered from diabetes and cancer, and basically almost died. And he basically cured himself through diet. And one of the things he said that was good for us in our diet is unheated raw honey, because of the enzyme content. It's metabolized differently than regular sugar. And for somebody that was diabetic, and it's also, when you take it after a meal, like a teaspoon or two, the digestive enzymes will help you to digest your meal. So that's one sweet that people can use.
Well, Stephen, we've blown through these 2 hours. I appreciate you being with us, and hope to be on the air with you again someday.
Hey, thanks for having me on, and nice being on with you too, John. Take care.
Thank you. Remember, class, honesty and integrity, what happens next is up to you.